we're just being blasted by all of the noise out there right now. Like
Yes.
all of it's like social media and it's like all of the talk.
In the non-scientific world is very much check your hormones, then you'll know where you are. The problem is we've got to disconnect what people experience because you can get your hormones checked at different places and what we know is
like how does women's hormones play into this? Because I think that that's a big factor.
It is, and it's a frustrating one. So if I'm just wearing my physician-only hat and I have women come in and they're like, I want my hormones checked, every part of my training would suggest that the answer is we don't need to check your hormones.
Welcome to another Million Miles, your personal lifestyle concierge with credibility. I'm Danielle Kiesling, and in each episode, I connect you with unparalleled access to authentic, credible voices from across the entire world of beauty, wellness, fashion, travel, and mindset.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another Million Miles, where we elevate voices that redefine success, style, and intentional living 1 mile at a time. I'm your host, Danielle Kiesling, and today's conversation is for every woman who's looked fine on the outside while quietly running in circles and running on fumes, honestly, behind the scenes. And I think most of us can relate to that at some point of our lives. Today's guest is Dr. Amy Loden Tiffany. She's a physician entrepreneur, a TEDx speaker, an author, and a mother of 5. I don't know where she finds this time. And she's redefining what success actually looks like for ambitious women. After years in traditional medicine, she's built a thriving concierge practice, helping women kind of reclaim their energy, their confidence, and their health without sacrificing or shrinking their goals. She's lived the burnout to reinvention journey, and she's helped transition women to move through postpartum, perimenopause, career pressure, family demands, and the list goes on, right? How to align their health with their goals so that they can thrive in every area of their life, being an entrepreneur, a mother, a partner, whatever it is that they are desiring. So if you are craving a version of this, or this is speaking to you, and you want to feel grounded, energized, and sustainable and be able to still love the ones around you and be successful, this is your episode. So let's get into it with Dr. Amy Loden Tiffany. Thank you so much for joining another Million Miles.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Well, let's talk about what you do, because this is I think that women right now are feeling so much pressure. You know, there's this movement of women empowerment and women in business and women entrepreneurs. And I'm seeing it more and more on social media and, on TV. And, tell me a little bit about like how this came about and what made you decide to do this, and what's your take on this whole women movement?
Yeah, that's a question that has multiple layers, obviously, right? And some of those are without control. Those are system issues that we can't influence. But for me, it came down to realizing that how I defined what a good doctor was and what a good mom was were in conflict. So roughly 5 years ago, about this time of year, I was working as I did every night on charts. I usually would see patients 8 to 5, come home, do dinner with the kids, and then do charting for 2 to 3 hours. And for every hour of patient care, it takes 2 hours to do all the admin behind it. So you're never caught up. I had about 3,000 patients. At the time, I had 4 children. My oldest was 7. And she asked me, are you getting me gifts for my upcoming birthday? And I kind of blew her off. In retrospect, I'm very ashamed of how I talked to her that night because that wasn't showing up in my best mom vibe. And I snapped at her and I said, go watch Paw Patrol. It's almost bedtime. I'm trying to get done. I am working. And she didn't move. She just stood there, and I looked up, and I know I was going to snap at her again. And she just got tears streaming down her face, silently crying. And she finally says, Mom, why do you love your job more than me? I couldn't handle that. That broke me. It was absolutely the catalyst for saying, how do I define what being a good mom means?
Yeah.
And what being a good doctor means?
Yeah.
And what good is it if I have 3,000 patients, but my children don't think I love them?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of what we've created here at Vitality here in St. Louis. And it continues to evolve, right? As these things do. What I have absolutely learned and encourage other women to do, though, is define what success looks like and means to you before it's too late, before you can't turn around.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm sure that was like a gut wrenching moment. And obviously you like pivoted really quickly. What did that look like? I mean, you got 3,000. How did you even wrap your head around that?
Well, that night I went and told my husband, this isn't working. I can either retire, be a stay-at-home mom. And for the record, he works at home. So this whole stay-at-home mom while dad's working at home did not clash well in his brain. And he was like, you are not retiring. Go find something else to do. My parents are veterinarians. I'd seen them run their own business. And I thought, well, why don't I take a stab at doing my own thing? And so initially it was just, let's provide stellar primary care and let's do longer appointments and let's see what we can create out of a less invasive and intensive schedule. And what it has become is meeting the need of the people in that practice who very clearly are women 35 to 55 they're sandwiched. They're either taking care of their children or their parents. They're working 2 full-time jobs, the one they get paid for and the one they go home to that they're not paid for, plus maybe a side hustle or 2. They're trying to figure out how do they grow in their faith and their health and their finances, all the things. And they're coming up to the point where they can't even finish loading the dishwasher because they're just done. They have no reserve. And it's not about the dishes, right? The thing is not the thing. What we're expecting women to do is unrealistic. We weren't created to do this. We weren't designed to be able to thrive in that type of unrealistic expectation. Neither are men, but certainly aren't women. And this culture dumps that on women. Yeah. Those expectations.
And I think that what is that? That's like our human, our nature of the caregiver and the,
right.
It's
taking advantage of who we are. And different women have it at different levels, right? And so I want to totally acknowledge the woman who's a stay-at-home mom. She's the CEO of her household. She's working too. So I'm not saying this only women who work outside their homes, but it's an unrealistic expectation we have of perfection and success. And we have to stop. If we don't redefine that for ourselves, then someone else will define it for us.
So true. So how does somebody define what does that look like for the listeners? Because I'm like, wow, she's talking to me sometimes. Sometimes you feel like you're in the hamster wheel doing everything you said you're juggling.
Right. It's interesting because I still hadn't learned by the time I created this practice of everything I just said.
Yeah.
And for the first 6 months of the practice, I kept going at that supersonic, ridiculous speed. I literally worked myself into a hospital bed. And I had to come to grips with the fact that our bodies are not designed to do this, our minds or our bodies. Stop and create space. And that was really difficult because no one teaches you how. You don't go to kindergarten and learn how to create a buffer in your life, right? That is a true life skill. Saying no and having boundaries are life skills that we don't teach. And then we wonder why people are frazzled and overwhelmed. So there's multiple ways you can do it. What I have found works best with our clients is we do many extended sessions over several weeks of understanding what are your values, what is important to you, why is it important to you? Is it actually important to you, or do you think it's supposed to be important to you? Mm-hmm. And so that's why you decided that. We challenge thought patterns and what are the beliefs that came down through your family, your culture, your religion, your community, whatever. And is that true for you? And, point in a case for myself, people would ask me from the time I knew I wanted to go to medical school all through the end of medical school, what kind of doctor you want to be? And I always said the same thing, which is a good one, right? It's not about the specialty. It's about how you show up for people. So what does a good doctor do? And everybody has their own set of definitions and expectations. I needed to understand, though, not from a patient perspective, what a good doctor was, but from a physician perspective, what is a good doctor? How do I know I'm following the science, that I am holding the bar high, that I'm not just skating by because I'm no longer at a big academic medical center? How do I know that what we're doing is not quackery, that I'm not hurting someone, right? And that took a lot of external coaching from my business coach and even a life coach for me to start to understand that for myself.
Yeah.
But once I did, you can't unsee some things once you've seen them, right? Yeah. And that pattern of thinking and beliefs that held me back, I'm a very good catastrophic thinker. I can go all or nothing on you within a millisecond, right? Many women are, especially our high achieving, ambitious, working moms. Again, working inside or outside the home, doesn't matter. They're doing something. And we don't appreciate the value we bring. including our stay-at-home moms, right? We just write them off. But if we hired someone to replace all the work they're doing, it costs us easily more than $100,000 a year. So bringing value and defining value for who am I? What is my identity? What is important to me? What's my calling in this life? What makes me excited? And that doesn't happen in a 15-minute office visit. That takes time. It takes intentional effort, multiple weeks, sometimes months before you start to really get to the core of what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what we help people do. And then from there, we can drive the decisions that influence their habits. As you know, habits influence your actions influence your outcomes, right? If you want different outcomes, you have to do different habits, which means you got to have different thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's so true. I mean, I would assume that this is a lot of like digging deep into like mindset and journaling and goals and like
and failing and being messy and saying, geez, that sucked. What could I learn from it though?
Yeah. Yeah. What is like, so give me just because I'm so impressed with like, you're still a mom of 5, you're still doing this, you're still working. I mean, you're like working probably, but like, what is your routine? Like, how do you stay grounded? This is so interesting.
So I'm in love with a concept which I call calendar management. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it is where I intentionally schedule an appointment with myself to define what my calendar looks like. So I go through my calendar each week. I usually start at the month level and then go to the week level. And what are the times that they're non-negotiable? I'm going to pray. I'm going to read. I'm going to do my walking, grocery shopping, showering, nails, whatever the thing is, right? But I schedule that first. What you don't know that I didn't tell you in the intro is this year, in the middle of the school year, we started homeschooling my oldest child. And so we're adding that to the mix, right? And so when you have these acute life events that you have to suddenly shuffle, you've got to have a good structure. So having that calendar management and scheduling a date with myself to schedule my week or my month has become a non-negotiable, because once I know what I can't miss, then I can schedule everything into it and around it. My youngest is a foster child. We'll probably be adopting her later this year, but I have to go down and have her meet her family, which is an hour away. So I have to schedule that, right? Knowing those things in advance is the luxury most of us have. We know when the birthdays are, the graduations, the big work events. What many of us do though is we're so overwhelmed, we procrastinate, or we precrastinate and do it early and then redo it because we want it to be perfect.
So true. Yeah. Wow, you're hitting so many good points. And that is like, I think that's a woman's trait too, is like the precrastination, right? Like we're trying to get ahead of it. We focus on it and then we have like what is that? It's like guilt. Like we're like, oh, it wasn't good enough or
it's not good enough, right?
Yeah. And so like then you spend twice the amount of time doing one set of events or one situation.
And you spend extra mental energy. So you have all these tabs open in your brain, like on your computer, right? You need to close them down. And we have to get to a point that sometimes in life, B+ is good enough. That's really hard for ambitious women to do.
It is.
Really hard. It's hard for me to accept when my kid makes a B+ and not be like, why didn't you make an A+? I know you could, right? She's happy with a B+. Why can't I be happy with a B+?
Oh my God, you just like resonated something with me. I remember like growing up, like if I came home with an A-, it was like, why did you get an A-?
Right.
And
what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So like, that's so interesting you say that, because I remember being a kid and being like, it's an A, get over it.
Right.
A+.
Yes. Correct. It's shocking, frankly, but that is an example of an embedded belief.
Welcome to Another Million Miles, your personal lifestyle concierge with credibility. Here we go beyond surface level advice. We dive deep into transformational insights from experts who set the standard in their fields.
Yeah.
And if I start digging, why am I doing that? Because my parents did it to me.
Totally. I mean, I think we both can agree that like there's so much digging that you have to do as an adult.
Yes.
You have triggers.
Yes.
You have triggers that you don't even know you have. You don't even remember why you have them. Like, but they're there subconsciously. And that's what shapes us.
And it may not be bad. Like, what is wrong with saying you could make an A? You have the talent, motivating you to go. Actually, there's nothing wrong with it. But applied the wrong way, it can be harmful.
Yeah.
And so recognizing, just like when I counsel my patients on the foods they're eating, everyone knows you don't eat the bag of potato chips if you're trying to get better labs and lose weight, right? But they don't know the good foods sometimes sabotage you. And the same way in our mindset, we can have good thoughts that don't work in our life anymore. We've outgrown them.
Yeah.
And we need to let them go.
What are some of the signs that when people come into you that you would say are really like that stand out, that you're like, yeah, you're in adrenal failure, or like you're like
your overload
system is done?
right? So I was talking to a woman yesterday, bringing up the dishes comment. She was like, I worked all week and I couldn't finish loading the dishwasher. There's 3 plates and I was just done. I couldn't do anymore. And so sometimes it's the simple things that it's just too much, right? Sometimes it's they come in and they're like, I'm fine all day, but by the time I get home, like all I can do is think about all the things I haven't done and I'm just spiraling and I can't go to sleep. Or I can go to sleep, but I wake up and the ticker tape just keeps going and going. Sometimes it's none of those. Sometimes it's like, I just need to get through this season and then it'll get better. But newsflash, it doesn't get better, right? Because we haven't created buffer to start with. And if we don't have that extra buffer, we're not going to change anything. We're going to get the same outcome, just another week, month, quarter down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the simple practices that people can implement that because this is probably a very overwhelming conversation for many people that are listening.
Correct.
People look at me and they follow me because they're like, we don't know how you do as much as you do. And I always say, I'm like, I know I do a lot and I am a workaholic, but I also take an hour at night to sit in a sauna every once in a while. And I go to yoga. That is my non-negotiable. I go to yoga at least 3 to 4 days a week in the morning.
Right.
It's a non-negotiable. It is. But to your point, if I don't write it on my calendar, even though it's a habit and I go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I will possibly miss, even though it's always 9:00.
Right.
I have to see it now on my calendar because that's my sacred time. And it makes me go, okay, there's balance in my life and I'm not going to have a mental breakdown. And it's just a visual thing. But I like what you said about you have to put that buffer time in there.
I think we often say something will take less time or more time than it really will. I think we're really bad at judging time, but that's not the same as saying I'm going to give myself a time limit and then I'm going to stop. For the dopamine addicts, in the room who are we love working, right? We could do this all day, all night because it just gives us so much dopamine. We have to also step back and say, what is the opportunity cost of my behavior? And understand what we're losing though when we do that. There's a huge win, but we need to simultaneously recognize, is the degree that I'm going for this win helping me in my other areas? And for me, that's what was the critical point, is I realized I wasn't having a win in my personal life. Same thing when I worked myself in a hospital, but how does that help my patients when I'm the one who's the patient in the hospital, right? We have to define what buffer looks like for us, and it can be different in different seasons. If you have a brand new baby at home, you're going to have a lot more need for self-care because all of your energy is going into caring for that baby. If you have multiple kids who are middle school and high school, a significant chunk of your time may be chauffeuring them around and figuring out what's the least toxic food I can get on the go. And we have so many competing messages that we really have to, I don't think you could do it alone. I think you have to work with someone who can reflect back to you. Here's your blind spots, mirror what you're saying, and really be honest. Is this something you can sustain at this pace forever?
Yeah.
And many people intellectually say, of course not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help though when we're actually living out different than what we're intellectually saying.
Yeah.
So if what you're saying isn't matching what your checkbook and your calendar are showing, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
In your priorities and in your values.
Yeah. That's a good, repeat that again.
If what you say is important to you isn't matching your checkbook and your calendar.
Okay.
You've got to disconnect.
Yeah. That's a great statement, actually. I think that what that means to me is you got to get real with yourself.
And most people never do. We're not taught to, in fairness to ourselves, right? So we need to have some compassion and grace toward this. But this is just as important as knowing algebra in my mind. How many of us use algebra every day, right? My 8th graders ask me all the time, why do I have to learn algebra? Right? And I'm like, I get it, but this is part of school. Well, why isn't knowing how to say no with grace, protecting your time for what you value, knowing how to articulate when you disagree with somebody in a kind, compassionate way, even if you still walk away disagreeing, why is that not taught in 8th, 9th grade and so forth? Those are life skills.
Isn't it interesting? That's so true. People avoid those hard conversations with themselves. And even to your point, you feel like a failure if you're like, you know what, I just can't do that today.
Right.
Right. Or they feel like they have to make an excuse. If somebody, say a girlfriend calls me up and do you want to go have drinks? And instead of just being like, you know what, I just am super overextended right now. I would love to, but I need to prioritize X, Y, and Z. Right. You're just you just make up a reason why you can't, besides saying like, I'm just overextended. It's like, it's got to be an excuse, right? And I think that it's just, and that wreaks mental havoc on your
Horrible.
subconscious, because then
Horrible.
you go back into that cycle of guilt. Like then I'm like telling up lies, or like I'm making excuses, and
Right.
and that doesn't help your mental state either.
Not at all. We have to be honest with ourselves before we can be honest with other people. And we've been taught to lie to ourselves, and that translates into all those excuses or avoidance behaviors that we see, whether it's friendships, intimate relationships, or others. It has to be acknowledged. You have to tell yourself the truth. And sometimes you have to realize that what you thought was the truth wasn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So you mentioned that, like, I know that you work with women. I think this was in my intro actually, that you really specialize with women that like are going through like hormonal changes or perimenopause and all these, maybe postpartum. Like, how does women's hormones play into this? Because I think that that's a big factor.
It is, and it's a frustrating one. So if I'm just wearing my physician only hat and I have women come in and they're like, I want my hormones checked, every part of my training would suggest that the answer is we don't need to check your hormones, especially if your periods are normal or if they've been gone for 12 months. And the current environment and discussion in the non-scientific world is very much check your hormones, then you'll know where you are. The problem is we've got to disconnect what people experience, because you can get your hormones checked at different places, and what we know in science. The biggest disconnect is not just the communication across the two, it's the fact that physicians haven't historically done a great job of explaining the why, and there's really good need to have all these conversations continue. At the end of the day, though, what we have to say is, what problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to solve hot flashes that are debilitating? Are you trying to deal with low libido, with the fact that you just were fine this morning, your boss walked in and you just went from 0 to 100, lickety split, and now you've got work problems, right? So it absolutely plays a role, but we're not having the same conversation in the medical field and in the real world.
Okay.
And because those conversations use the same words, they're thought to be the same, and we're talking past each other and at each other instead of with each other.
Okay.
And that's why there's not movement forward. In our practice, we rarely check hormones, but we fix people's problems. Maybe it's with hormones, maybe it's not. Because I don't care what the number is. I care how you feel and who you are, and if you're able to do the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. I have colleagues who would adamantly disagree, and I would respectfully hold my position, right, that we need to be more concerned about hearing what people say and validating what we can, where we can, than writing them off and gaslighting them and telling them it's in their head and they're making it up and it's part of aging and there's nothing wrong. And even if you check their hormones, they're normal, right? Like, that's nonsense. That doesn't help anyone. We need to get to the root cause. And many times that starts just with listening. What is the problem you're trying to solve? The dishes are not the problem. What's the real problem? You don't have capacity and a buffer in your life.
Yeah.
How do we create that?
I mean, I honestly, like, the more you say this, like, I've talked to so many different people on this podcast, and we've had people that come in and they talk about hormones and they talk about peptides and they talk about all these things. But like, at the end of the day, what you're saying is, you can do all of that. You could be the healthiest person. I was talking to somebody that was like, you have to be careful when you're optimizing your life to not over optimize, because now you're putting 50 other things on the table that you have to get done in order to be younger, and I was like, wow, that is actually really, like, yeah, if I'm starting to like do so many things during the day that I have to do in order to like feel younger or look younger, like, what kind of cortisol like spikes am I enduring as well?
And what are you missing out on? Because you're doing all of that, right? Yeah. So it's not to say that those are bad things. They may be something that each woman has to decide for herself. Is that something I value and I want to pursue?
Yeah.
And it's not a good or bad. We have to stop judging things as good or bad, right or wrong. That's just your preference, right? And so when we work with people, we're very much, what is the problem you're trying to solve? What have you tried already? What worked a little? What didn't work at all? What made you feel like you fell flat on your face? Right? Let's listen to your body. Let's use data where we can to support this. And then let's move forward listening to your body, because your body is smart and it will tell us. Sometimes it takes longer than others, and that is frustrating. It does not help that the current healthcare system is not aligned with that vision and mission.
Yeah.
And that's probably not going to align. So then you've got people in a position where they have to decide, do I pay out of pocket for these other services? Is it worth that investment? Big questions. And that causes tension too. And then you get an us versus them mentality starting. And that's not what any of us want. Nobody who works in the healing professions went to that training and gave up a decade of their life to treat you like you were not their best intention. Nobody does that. And yet that is the message so many women specifically receive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It took me a lot of like self-investing and time to like, I was kind of told the same thing when I got into my 40s, like, oh, that's just normal. Like, you're normal. We looked at your hormones and I'm like, I'm a hot mess right now. I am not normal.
Right.
Moody, I'm emotional, and my body is like gaining weight, like for no apparent reason. And I had to like do my own digging, and like that was so frustrating to me because
it is.
I trusted my doctor a lot and been with her for a long time, but like it was just like I felt like I'm just being dramatic.
It's very crippling to go to someone you trust, even if you don't know them well, but they've been there for you several times you've needed them. They've got their credentials and you don't feel like they believe you.
This is Another Million Miles, where luxury meets authenticity and every step brings you closer to the life that you deserve.
And I can tell you there's been many times I've experienced that as a patient, as the advocate for my husband or children or parents and in-laws. But when I put on my physician hat now, my goal is not to necessarily prescribe a medication, rush you out of the rooms, right? My question is, what problem are you trying to solve? And let's solve it together.
I love that. I love that approach. I think that that's brilliant. I mean, yeah, because like at the end of the day, you're also like, you're always going to, I mean, I truly believe this, that like, if you stop and you listen, right, to what people are saying, you learn so much.
Yeah.
And
they're going to tell you what's wrong.
Exactly. And they most of the time will answer their own questions.
Yes.
You just have to get them to like talk through
Pause.
it and pause.
And
it's like, and then just re-ask the question back to them. And it's like brilliant. They're like, oh, maybe I am feeling this certain way, or my energy dips at 3:00 every day. And they just haven't even stopped to pause and go, something doesn't feel right.
Correct.
What is going on?
Many of the patterns we live as adults, we learned as children from watching those around us and just going through school. For example, many women in their 40s tell me that they eat lunch on the go or dinner, right? Like they're just constantly trying to get it in, get it done. It's not a thoughtful, pleasant experience. It's more a task to check off. And if you walk that backwards, where did that fast eating start? Many times it was in the school lunchroom where you had a 15 or 20-minute lunch break.
That's interesting.
And we just continued it forever. It makes no sense.
It doesn't. Like, that is something I am conscious about too, because I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I shoveling an egg, standing up
right
the sink, washing dishes? Like, just sit down for 5 minutes and enjoy what you just made.
Well, you're worth it, right? Like, if you saw your child or your parent doing that, you'd be like, well, slow down, enjoy your food, right? But we don't give ourselves that same valuation because we think that we just have to keep going. And I'm going to call BS on that because that's nonsense.
Yeah.
You're worth it.
Yeah. Isn't it so funny? It's so interesting that you're talking, because we're also, I think, as nature, we're the ones that want people to sit. Like, if we cook dinner, women are like, are you going to eat your food while it's hot?
Right.
Like, almost like you're hovering over your kids.
Yes.
Like, are you going to eat it? Like, it's not going to taste as good if it's cold. Like, that mentality is such but then to your point, so many moms I see serve their kids dinner and like they never sit down to eat. They're like right from cooking to serving to like throwing in an extra thing to do in the house.
Correct.
They're like cleaning up before anyone's even like digested.
Correct.
Yes. And that's a hard one to break.
It is. And I don't know why we've allowed ourselves to believe that that's okay. It's not.
No.
So if you're listening and you think you have to do that, you don't.
You don't.
And you know what? Maybe the dishes do pile up in the sink. Maybe the toilet doesn't get cleaned every single week, right? Maybe the kids have to put their own unfolded laundry in their rooms. That is okay.
Yeah.
And 5 kids is a busy household. I have a pair of twins in there and it's chaotic. It's messy. It's not what you find when you turn on the TV and look at these beautiful homes, right?
Yeah.
But my kids know they're loved and they know responsibility, and they're going to show up in the world as humans that are helpful and kind, which is way more important to me than how my house looks.
I think that you just made a huge point of like, we're just being blasted by all of the noise out there right now. Like,
Yes.
all of it's like social media, and it's like all of the talk about reverse aging and all of the things. Like, how do we like chill out on letting that
Yeah.
noise in? Because your point is so valid. It's like, you know what? I'm not on a reality TV show, and I don't need everything to look like a designer just came and like organized it all and stacked it all up. But like, we're being fed that all
Yes.
day to support this already battling, you know,
Right.
syndrome that we deal with.
Correct. And what we don't realize is what we're paying for it. We think that we're paying to have the house look nice and the support we need and all the pictures for Facebook or whatever platform, but we don't realize we're paying in terms of our physical health, our relationship health. Many times our spirituality, our finances are suffering in a way we don't realize. There's an opportunity cost. And the wise woman will stop and say, what I'm doing isn't giving me the results I want. So if I want different results, I need to do this differently. And in my experience as a physician, as a coach, as a mom, you can't do it alone. We weren't designed to do life alone. It's to be in community. If you think of our ancestors 1,000 years ago, they weren't out seeing whose house looked the nicest for the local group to judge, right? And that's what it is. It's social judgment, collective judgment. They were there helping each other have babies, filling in for moms who died at childbirth, helping run households as communities.
Yeah.
And we've completely gone away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have really gotten away from that. I do feel like there's like that movement though towards like women entrepreneurs, and like all of a sudden, like you can find community out there.
Yes, you
You
can.
know, like there is a little bit like what you're doing. Like people are getting, I feel like it's like both. Like we're getting like we're dialed in and we're getting fed so much information, but like in
Yes.
sense is like we have to dig and find the community that's like filling us up too.
Correct.
And
Absolutely. Safe. And we have to decide what we're going to judge ourselves on and what we're going to say is safe to not do. I don't wear makeup anymore. I mean, my hair will never look as beautiful as yours does on all of your podcast covers, right? Like that's not my story because I'm way more invested in a different way. And I think each of us has to acknowledge what we want more. I really applaud the steps that you've taken. And I know you've probably told your listeners before, but the more you can be intentional, the more you can design your life, the better experience you're going to have. And again, if it's not working, realize that it's not a failure.
Yeah.
There's this idea of you can fail forward. And part of that is saying, all right, that wasn't working. Now it's time to stop. It's time to pivot. It's time to do something different and explore if that's going to work better for me in this life stage, for me, my family, and whatever I'm trying to create.
Yeah. I love that word. I use that word a lot, pivot. It's like one of my staples.
Yes.
You know, I think it's just an important reality of like, I always use pivot and I say, I am human. I am human.
Yes.
I am human. I'm just a human being.
Correct.
Like we have to give our human selves grace, and like,
correct.
there will always be a tomorrow. Like,
correct.
Right. And, you know, but like, there's always tomorrow. Like, I'm like, you know, today I wrote in my journal because I didn't sleep well last night. I'm like, what are my goals for today? And it was like, to have a hard stop at 8:00, make time and go sit in my sauna, even though I have 50 million things to do and I have an email box piling up. But I have realized with similar situation of crashing to burn.
Yes.
That like, you can't be anything to anybody if you can't turn off, and like, it's okay to be human.
Right. It is. And it's kind of silly that we challenge that because that's how we're designed, right? We can only be who we are. So stop trying to pretend to be something else and be aligned with who you're supposed to be in the world.
It's so true. Anyone out there listening to this, I think that is a statement of the day is like, be you and like own it and, you know, embrace it. And, you know, don't worry. Like, just, I love the fact that you stated that you don't wear makeup anymore. I like love the fact that when I don't have to like work in the beauty industry or I'm at home, I can get on and be like, I don't care. I'm not on a podcast today. I'm going to walk around without my makeup on and my red light therapy on. And it is what it is. Right. And like,
doesn't mean I don't take care of my skin though. Right. Like we make it this all or nothing. Well, you don't do that. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong. This is what I own.
Nothing. And, To your point too, as women and as you're busy as you are, like you have to pick and choose,
Right.
and what is
Priority
priorities.
management.
Yeah. I love
Yep.
that.
Most women, it's my firm belief, most women successful in whatever field it is, they don't have a problem with time management, but they do have a problem with priority management. And until we fix that and we fix their calendar, they're not going to get different results.
Well, I'm being conscious of the time because I know you have to pick up your little kiddos, but or your big kiddos.
Yes. Nope, it's the littles.
You're like all over the place. Where if somebody's not living in St. Louis, where can they work with you, or how do they find someone similar, or what?
Right. So there's a couple ways. If they want to have someone who really focuses on perimenopause and menopause, they can go to the Menopause Society. It's a global organization that gives education to women and also showcases providers who are interested in menopausal women and medicine for them. So the Menopause Society, and you can even search by zip code to find someone in your area. There's often a collection of people who are both certified and non-certified, but they're all interested in menopausal medicine.
Nice.
So that's one way. Absolutely work with us. If they want to learn more, they just need to contact my office. Easiest way is online, just vitalitymwc.org, Vitality Medical and Wellness Consulting in St. Louis. They can find us on all the socials. At Dr. Amy Tiffany is YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I started a podcast of my own somewhat recently that they might like on YouTube. It's called The Authentic Physician, and I bring different female physicians who are entrepreneurs.
Oh, wonderful.
And we talk about what does it look like to have trust in medicine and to buck the system and to create something different. And so certainly they might enjoy some of those very human conversations about what does it look like for doctors to be doing it messy, and what do we do and how do we support each other? So lots of ways to find me, but I'd love to connect with anyone. Certainly if they're in the postpartum phase, within a couple years of having a baby, they're welcome to contact my office for a free copy of the Postpartum Pivot, which I wrote to help moms realize what's normal after the baby, whether it's your first or your fifth kid. And so love to add value where we can. But thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. So, Dr. Amy, thank you how you showed up today and just what is your true authentic self? It's so much wisdom, honesty, and the kind of clarity that makes women listening to this go, you know what? Take a deep breath. I'm not in this alone and I can do this differently. So, if you're listening right now and something in this episode hit you in the heart, I want you to take the moment and let it land. You don't have to earn rest because you're not out there earning it. You should rest. You don't have to white knuckle your way through another season, and you definitely don't have to sacrifice yourself to be successful. So until next time, keep choosing a life that feels as good as it looks. And remember, the best life isn't found, it's created. And that's 1 mile out of 6. Thank you again, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on another Million Miles, where luxury and authenticity meet to enrich your journey. This is another Million Miles, and I'll see you on the path ahead in our next episode. Until then, keep embracing the journey, savoring each moment, keep dreaming big and moving closer to the life you envisioned, and traveling afar.